welcome to Tarun IS. Today we will be discussing one of the important editorials that appeared in the Hindu from 8th of October 2022. So let's start with today's editorial analysis. The topic is the corporate social responsibility. The title of the article is Strengthening CSR is a Profitable Idea, written by Amar Patnaik, who is Minister of Parliament from Odisha, Rajya Sabha, and he was a former CAG also, that is Controller Editor General of India, right? So you can relate this topic with General Studies paper 2, that is issues relating to development and management of social sector, development processes and the development industry, the role of NGOs, self-help group, various groups and associations, donors, charities, institutional and other stakeholders. You can relate this topic with General Studies paper 4, that is corporate governance and CSR, right? So let's start first with what is CSR. Basically, when a business is conducted, the businessman has a responsibility towards the socio-economic development of the country. In order to alleviate the negative spillover effect that a business produces, the CSIR was introduced for the first time in India in the Companies Act of 2013 under Section 135. Under Section 135. And this functions on the trusteeship philosophy. This is a very famously known philosophy by Gandhiji, that we hold our property and wealth as a trust in the name of the common man, right? With the 2019 amendment, the Government of India made it mandatory for the companies to contribute 2% of their profit of the preceding 3 years towards the CSR activities, that is the corporate social responsibilities. Basically, it's a mechanism to regulate the business model to help company be socially accountable to itself, to stakeholder and to the public. And through the CSR, the companies have the opportunity to contribute to the nation's growth and development, to contribute to the social development, to contribute to the social and economic equality. Now, according to the article, it has been said that under Section 135 of the Companies Act of 2013, the CSR spending has been increased in the past 5 decades. That means from the year 2014-15 to the year 2020. You can look at the figures here. That it was approximately 10,000 crores in 2015, and it rose to about 24,000 crores in 2020 to 21 financial year. However, the writer points out to the fact that there are increasing number of the companies who spend less than the 2% limit, or zero spending on the CSIR has increased from the year 2015-16 to the year 2020-21. That means, comparing these two figures given in the article, that means the CSR spending are increasing. However, the number of the companies who are contributing to the CSR activities is decreasing. That means there are only few companies who contribute to the majority of the CSR activities. So in this editorial analysis, we will be discussing what are the concerns associated with the CSR activities, what are the suggestions that the writer suggest for the improvement in the CSR and strengthening the CSR framework. So what happens if a company, now this is about that a company is spending less than the prescribed limit. Now what happens if a company spends an amount in excess of the minimum prescribed 2%, that is minimum stipulated amount? Well, it is then set off against the spending in the succeeding financial years, right? So this writer points out to the fact that there is a geographical bias when it comes to spending of CSIR money. There are some regions in the country which receive more CSR funding. For example, the regions of Maharashtra, region of Tamil Nadu. It is given here. If you look at the regions of Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Gujarat, they receive the largest funding from the CSR activities, and the regions of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, they are comparatively far behind when it comes to receiving the CSR profits. So writer points out towards the geographical biasness as one of the problems in the CSIR. The writer also points out to the preferential spending when it comes to the CSIR money. That means there are certain activities which receives more amount. These activities includes education, health and sanitation. However, the concerns of environment are not addressed specifically with the CSR funding. So Schedule 7 of the Act specifically mentions about the environmental conservation. It also mentions about that the CSR spending should also go into the environmental conservation and protection measures. However, if you look at these two areas, the education, health and sanitation receives comparatively more CSR attention. Writer also points out towards the auditing concern that the CSR activities have. We know that the auditing, the guidelines for the auditing are prescribed by the Indian Institute of Chartered Accountants, the CSR account, according to the prescribed guidelines by the institute, should mention the spends, non-spends, underspends, overspends and notes to account activities. However, auditor cannot investigate into all these spendings or non-spendings. So let's talk about the concerns which are raised by the writers when it comes to CSIR framework. The first concern that the writer raises is there is no clear percentage which is needed to be spent in the local area. No clear percentage of the amount has been prescribed by the government to be spent in the local area. There is more focus on output than the quality. The quality is compromised and there is more focus on the output. That means, for example, if a CSR activities is funding the education, more number of schools, more number of benches or improved infrastructure, etc., though they form the part of the education infrastructure, but what about the quality of the education? The quality of the education which is given in these institutions, that is being overlooked. The Standing Committee on the Finance, it observed that the information regarding the spending on CSR by the companies is insufficient and difficult to access. So the writer also raises concern that an auditor can investigate only details of the spending and at most can question the authenticity. However, there is one issue here, that the auditor is not mandated to qualify. The auditor is not mandated to qualify. So this also becomes one of the safeguards when it comes to the CSR activities. The writer suggests some of the pathway that India can follow when it comes to the CSR activities, when it comes to strengthening the CSR framework. The first thing that what the writer says is that should be a national level platform centralized by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, where all states could list the potential CSR admissible projects. There can be a corporate social responsibility project repository with India investment grid that can serve as a guide for such efforts. The writer also suggests prioritizing the environmental concern, with 25% of the CSR spending to be dedicated to the environment regeneration, conservation and protection. All the CSR implemented and selected and implemented with the active involvement of the communities. So the writer focused on the community participation when it comes to implementing the project under the CSR funding. The writer also suggests implementing the high-level committee recommendation which was constituted in the year 2018. And the writer also suggests strengthening the reporting mechanism. The writer also talks about Writer also talks about disclosure of the concerns while selecting the project location, implementing agencies, etc. That means the writer points out towards the transparency when it comes to implementing the projects under the CSR funding. Bridging the CSR within the purview of the statutory financial audit. Stopping the duplication and fraud is essential. The writer also suggests that there should be that the non-spend, underspend and overspend should be qualified by the auditor in audit report as a qualification go account and not just as a note to account. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs and the life departments, they used it to exercise direct monitoring and supervision over CSR spend companies to the life ministries. Right. The writer suggests, basically the writer suggests that there should be an oversight mechanism to monitor the activities undertaken under the CSIR. Now, in the year 2021, if we remember that the post-COVID, that during the COVID-19, India had manufactured many essential items which were required by the hospitals and other institutions, other health institutions, and also by the health functionaries. Many of the companies undertook such R&D to help the nation recover from the COVID-19, such as the development of the vaccines like COVAX and Covishield. The 2021 amendment in the CSR framework also suggests that such R&D activities which were undertaken during the COVID-19 specifically to address the issue of COVID-19 should be excluded from the CSR framework. The amendment also suggested that any of the activities undertaken by the company to benefit their employees should not be considered as a CSR activity. Any activity which is undertaken by the company during the normal course of its business is also excluded from the CSIR, and also the activities which are undertaken by the companies outside the nation, except for the sporting purpose, except for the training of the sportsmen, etc., is also excluded from the framework. So this was about the CSIR framework. This was about the corporate social responsibility that we discussed today, and the recent amendments in the by the Government of India in the 2021. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching Tarun IAS.